It's a word on a lot of lips these days, imperialism. Ukrainians use it to denounce an invasion they say recalls the days of Czarist Russia. Vladimir Putin uses it to rally support against the U.S. and its allies. In the spotlight over the next 7 days, one of the darkest examples of imperialism, the King of the Belgians kicking off a tour of Congo. What words should Philippe I employ in evoking what was originally not a colony, but the personal property of his forefather, King Leopold II? 6 decades after independence, what kind of reception from the Congolese? In the annals of imperialism, the expansionist scramble for power and riches in Congo stands out as a particularly grim tale. What can we learn from the 19th century slaughter and enslavement of a land 77 times bigger than Belgium? How did the ruthless extraction of rubber and wood then inform today's scramble for the commodities of the information age, precious metals like cobalt, mined essentially in the Democratic Republic of Congo? More broadly, how to address the past to inform the present, whether it's France when it comes to Algeria, Britain when it comes to Kenya, or Belgium when it comes to Congo. Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at confronting Congo's past. With us, former Congolese presidential candidate, daughter of the country's first head of state, sociologist Justine Kasavubu, who heads the Mouvement des Démocrates. Thank you for joining us from Brussels.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very happy to join you. Thank you.
From Nairobi, human rights attorney Jean Maubert Senga, who is the DR Congo researcher at Amnesty International. Welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thank you.
A pleasure to welcome back from Geneva, Benedict Kumbi Njoko, historian and spokesperson for Likambo ya Mabele. Can you tell us what Likambo ya Mabele means in English?
Thank you for having me first. And it means the case for the land.
All right. Welcome back. Welcome to Andrea Ngombe of Namemba Consulting.
Thank you, Rafael.
You're the neutral party here. You're from that other Congo,
exactly.
Congo
I'm
Brazzaville.
From the small Congo.
Okay.
I'm the neighbor.
Thank you for being with us. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation, and you have on Facebook and Twitter, hashtag F24debate. First visit to Kinshasa by a Belgian king in 12 years. The Prime Minister in tow, Vadika Bael, has more.
It's the first visit of a Belgian sovereign to the Democratic Republic of Congo for 12 years. Just weeks away from the country's 62nd independence anniversary, the views in the streets of Kinshasa are divided due to the shadow of colonization.
I am really happy about his visit, because the country has been going really badly since the Belgians left. We don't understand anything anymore.
They plundered all our wealth, and today you invited this Belgian king again to grant us favors. I want the president to take care of what's important for the Congolese instead of making unnecessary expenses by inviting the royal couple.
In 2020, the king expressed his regrets towards the acts of cruelty and exploitation committed during the reign of his ancestors. But many Congolese are waiting for the monarch to do more. In particular, waiting for the restitution of looted artworks, as well as recognition of their sacrifices for their colonizer.
During the Second World War, the Congolese gave their lives for victory in Belgium, but it shouldn't stop there. The Belgian king must commemorate, together with us, the Congolese, the soldiers lost during the war, and it must also decorate the veterans who are still alive.
The visit marks a chance for reconciliation after years of sour relations under Joseph Kabila, and comes as the country is plagued by renewed violence in North Kivu, and Belgium has urged for an immediate halt to the fighting.
Justine Kasavubu, the King of the Belgians, who in the past has expressed regret. We know he's going to make a big speech before Parliament on Wednesday. What are you expecting?
Well, first I must say that all these regrets, I mean, it was not an impulse following our own tragedy. It was just the consequence of what happened in the United States with the murder of George Floyd. So now, yes, it is said that he's going to make a speech in our parliament, but so far I don't know if he would, save our country or if he would, talk about the mapping report, which really relates all the tragedy that happened in our country over the 25 past years. So I don't expect
explain for us what the mapping report is.
Yes, the mapping report is, you see, all the work that United Nations made about the tragedy of our country. As you know, we are now under occupation. We don't hesitate to say that Congo is, experiencing a genocide provoked by Rwanda and Uganda. And over the two last decades, we didn't see Belgium to say a thing about all this situation. And all of a sudden today, they said that the king is going to Congo. I think that this trip is just coming in a very bad moment because Congo wants to send to trial all those who were mentioned in this report. And it means that Kagame himself is responsible of this genocide, as well as President Museveni. But I'm so astonished to see that so far nothing has done to send all these people to trial, or at least to ask explanations. So we have mass killings, we have mass graves everywhere. Dr. Mukwege is complaining all the time to say that no, they are still killing people, sending rebels in our country, but Belgium didn't say a word about that. So
we'll be seeing a meeting between Denis Mukwege, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, and the king. Just on what you're expecting from the king when it comes to Belgium's colonial past.
Well, this past is very heavy, and I think that they will never erase what has been done during Leopold II, and even today, because now King Philippe is going there. But what was he thinking about the tragedy we are just facing since the turn of the century? So I don't expect much of him because he's a monarch and a constitutional monarch. So he's just going to say what his government says. So I mean, he might, express some apologies or some other regrets or maybe excuses, but it comes so late. It comes so late. And we also have all this heavy burden about the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. They will never erase the trauma that they caused on that. And now all of a sudden, they go to Congo. They want to do business again. But I think that you just don't recover from such a past so easily as for granted. So now I expect them just before to respect the Congolese people, which they don't do. I live in Belgium in exile. I am confined in Belgium because in our country, instability is still going on. And here, they don't respect us. Can you understand that this trip has been organized without taking contact with the opposition leaders? As you mentioned, I'm the daughter of the first president of that state, Congo. But they didn't care to ask us what we think about it. So I don't see what they can do. If they present excuses, okay. But I think that it's too late. And I can also give you the answer that was given this morning by a Belgian journal, which is called the Standard. They said that this trip seems more like an interference in domestic affairs of Congo, because now we are in pre-campaign electoral, and it seems that they are going just to back up all the leaders that are on the spot. And they won't talk about justice, they won't talk about our freedom, about the rule of law, about good governance. No, they just want to do business again. So
let me bring in on
I
this.
think that
Let me bring in on this, Jean-Maubert Senga. Do you share the very low expectations of Justine Kasavubu?
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what the king is going to say tomorrow in the Congolese parliament. It's in 2020 he was the first Belgian monarch to publicly recognize, to publicly send regrets to the Congolese people. It was already a good step forward, but it was insufficient. So I'm hoping that tomorrow from Kinshasa, he's going to take a further step and recognize the suffering and the trauma that has been caused by the colonization, but also the exploitation, and we can of which we can still see the legacy until in today's Congo, and that he's going to take further steps in acknowledging that and in apologizing to the Congolese people.
And what's the concrete manifestation of that colonial legacy as you see it?
Well, you can see it in almost every component of the Congolese life, the culture, politics, social life, and everything there. It's from, the dependency, like the mental and moral dependency, the expectation from some good saviors, and so on and so forth. You can also see it in the way the Congolese economy is still an economy of exploitation. The raw materials, whether they are minerals or timber and other resources, are exploited and sent abroad, now to China, but also still to Belgium, US, Canada, and other countries. And you have what some people call black colonizers, the Congolese people who have just taken the power from the Belgians, but who behave completely like the Belgians in the way that they treat the Congolese people.
All right, and earlier we had Congo's foreign minister who spoke to France 24's Mark Perlman about the visit and the warming of ties under Felix Tshisekedi and the expectations surrounding that Wednesday speech and a further apology from the king.
Si le roi veut
If the king wants to apologize, we're not going to refuse it. But I believe that we're already on a significant path, in the sense that we are on the verge of turning the page, apologizing, and moving on. So I think that this is not a prejudicial question.
Benedict Kumbi-Njoko, your reaction to those words, at what point do you not erase the past, but move on?
Well, I think that this is a kind of a trick of the Congolese officials who always want to move on and not look at the past. And I think that apologies, as it has been said already, fine. But I think that what would be more interesting for us is to have a real trial against Belgium and what they have done in the Congo, and especially the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. And I also think that the fact that they chose to put that visit on the auspices of the colonial past actually allow them not to talk about what they're doing right now, which is neocolonization. And I think that this is more important today than what will be said about that past, because I think that a trial and reparation will be an important move, but showing regrets first and then apologize, I don't know where it takes us.
It's such an important moment. Just explain it for a world audience here. 1961, Congo's first prime minister assassinated. The facts are pretty well established. It was a combination of the Belgian police and the CIA. Why is that resonate so loudly still today?
But because it is actually, I think, really a paradigm that the West has been using in African country as a whole and in Congo in particular, meaning that it spent his time undermining the democracy in Congo. And it resonates because we understand better today the role of those foreign countries, and I would say the West in particular, the way, as I said, they that try to really do their utmost in order for the Congo not to thrive. And this is a persistent politics that they've been leading since the independence and that are following now. And today they have Congolese people who are more aware of that, and it makes the brutality of the assassination of Patrice Lumumba even more outrageous because we don't see them repent in that they follow with the same politics. Eliminate those who have a view for the Congo. We don't know what Patrice Lumumba would have done had he been not assassinated. But at the same time, for what he left us with, we can imagine that he wanted another future for the Congo than the one we have today.
Yeah, when the king returns back to Belgium, there's going to be a ceremony on June the 20th in Brussels where the remains of Patrice Lumumba will be returned to the assassinated prime minister's family. In a previous inquiry back in 1999, the former chief of police admitting to dissolving Lumumba's body in acid, but keeping finger bones and multiple teeth, one of which was covered in gold, as a type of, quote, hunting trophy. Gérald Soot died a year after he testified. The remains only came to light when his daughter displayed them in a 2016 interview with Flemish media. So there's going to be two acts to this, talking about Patrice Lumumba. There's the tour right now of the king in Congo, and then there's going to be that ceremony back in Brussels. André Ngumba, your thoughts on this?
My thought is that it's come late, like Justin Kasavubu said, but it's something relevant because you have this very huge community of people from DRC in Belgium, and I think it's time not just to move on, but to heal the relationship between those.
How do you do that? How do you heal?
First, you tell the truth, and only a democracy and a strong democracy can face its own devil. And Belgium, by doing so, show that they are on the path of something really good for the both countries. And also on the DRC side, the need of a trial, like the other panelists said, is really relevant too. We need to go on trial, not just to dig up some skeletons in the closet, but also to have this clear view of what was going on there, who really profited from the looting of the country, and how to have a repatriation of goods, of money, and help the community back in Congo heal and move forward too.
You've had panels in Belgium before.
Mm-hmm.
What would you see differently? You talk about a trial. Like, what kind of a trial?
What kind of trial? Like, you say it's a genocide, and even if it was perpetrated before the notion of genocide came into light, it's something relevant to question and to discuss about the role of many strong companies we know today that were involved in that mass killing of Congolese people back in the days.
Yeah, the historians estimate perhaps 10 million people were killed in the period where King Leopold reigned in the late 19th and early 20th century. Justine Kasavubu, your reaction when you heard, though, Jean-Maubert Senga talk about the concept of black colonizers, that you can't pin it all on white colonial rule?
Well, I'm just afraid to say that this mindset is not vanished. It's just occurring again. So today we may not have these blacks, but we have Congolese who are just manipulated. It's just manipulation today, and also we have all this denial of our democracy, denial of all our Congolese who got the degrees here in university. So it
manipulated by who? Manipulated by
colonialism. By Belgium. And I think that Belgium should keep a low profile today, because if you see over the 60 years, the past 60 years, all those who got degrees in university in the Western countries, they are always asked to be number 2 or number 3. And they always manage to put as head of states those who are weak, those who have no pretension in this matter. So this is also what causes all these difficulties in our development process. So I think that it should be clear that Belgium has to tell us exactly its position and where it is standing, because we cannot continue for the next 60 years to see our youth just seeking for progress, seeking for welfare, but not having a way out, because there is always all these colonialists coming at the end to say, no, you have a degree, you came out from Harvard, you came out from Sorbonne, but you don't have to deal, you don't have to run your country, you have to serve the dictator that we are going to put in place. So this is the whole challenge that we have to face for the future. So this is the new method that the Belgian is still applying. And let me tell you that over the last 25 years here, we've always had the same coalition ruling Belgium, which is a dictatorship, a modern dictatorship. So where are the Christians? We don't see them. Where are the Flamen? We don't see them. So it's only a group of Belgium who has decided that the things should go as we have seen, as we have experienced. So this is also another challenge for us. But I think that we are ready for this fight too. But I think that today we have to talk with Belgium, and Belgium must accept us and not just ban some people and make its own choice, its own candidates, and go and back up those who are on the spot, even if they deserve to go in trial. No, they forget about trial, but they will come to you and talk about reconciliation. How can you talk about reconciliation if you don't have justice? Tell me. How is it possible? And that's...
Let me bring in Jean-Mobert Sanga on this. To what degree do you think that, to this day, Belgium still pulls a lot of strings in Congo?
Well, it's Belgian implication in the Congo is huge. Politically, especially politically, it has the advantage of knowing the Congo, of keeping the archives from the colonial years, and as people know, for example, the Congolese map of minerals and other resources date from the colonial times, and they are. If you want to know about where are diamonds, where is gold or whatever, you need to travel all the way to Belgium until today. In 2019, Belgium was among the first countries, the first Western countries to acknowledge President Tshisekedi following a very controversial election. And until today, you can see that they seem to care more about their own interests, economic interests and geopolitical interests, than the fate of the Congolese people who have been suffering for years after the so-called independence. Then there is the assassination of Lumumba and his companions. As Benedict was saying, the Belgian people and the Belgian authorities still haven't addressed that question in a proper way. We are talking about a tooth or teeth, which is the only remain from Lumumba. I'm wondering, King Philippe is visiting Lubumbashi during this trip. Is he going to stop at the place just a few kilometers outside of Lubumbashi where Patrice Lumumba was killed by Belgians and the CIA, and and his body literally slaughtered? Is he going to stop there and make some and say something, or just symbolically to show to send a message?
And if he does?
Yeah, I think if he does, it would be a good step, but in itself, it's not enough. Again, words matter, and any step that is done to show that Belgium is really aware of its the suffering that it has caused in the Congo, and that is willing to, going forward, it is willing to, to correct, to change its stance and the way it deals with Congo, and putting Congolese people's interests first, then that will make sense. So to come back to your question, Belgium is one of the most influential countries when it comes to Congolese politics and economics until today. And unfortunately, that influence is not used, is largely used, let's say so, to maintain a system of exploitation by Congolese politicians and their foreign supporters. And this has to change.
Well, let me put it to the panel here on this, because you mentioned at the beginning how the extraction industry is at the heart of a lot of this, and those maps that you have to go to Brussels to see where the mines are. Back on King Leopold's day, it was diamonds, but it was rubber, especially. It was wood. Today, it's precious minerals that include cobalt, key for making batteries, and as we can show you in a graph here, increasingly important. We're in the age, remember, of the energy transition away from fossil fuels. And if you see in that graph, the DR Congo, when it comes to cobalt, essential in batteries, is just going to grow. These are estimates for the years 2024, 2025, 2026. The smaller graph in light green, that's the rest of the world's potential supply. So it just shows the importance. And the world's second producer is Russia, but it's far behind, and it's just one of many countries that also makes it. Let me ask you, Benedict Kumbi and Njoko, the big players in cobalt, they're not Belgian. They're Glencore, Swiss. They're the Chinese. Is Belgium really pulling the strings?
But I think that maybe let's try to go back at the end of World War II, because I think the moment is really important. When the US actually realized the potential, the industrial potential of the Congo, they complained about the fact that Congo was still in the sphere of influence of the colonizers, and that the French were also around. And they started actually to undermine Belgian power in Congo by messaging the Congolese about democracy and by colonialism and so forth. And what Belgium did is that they went to plead their cause to the US, and saying that the role that they could play, it was really a good role for the Westerners as a whole. And I think that they kept that position of the people who have the expertise in the Congo, and that the ones who are serving other countries. And in that sense, I would say that they didn't change from the role that actually Leopold II played in Berlin, meaning that he was there also to try to please everybody and to let them access the Congo and take what they wanted. And I think that to this idea is still in Belgian mind, and I think that this visit that we have today really speaks to that, because we know that for the regime in place now, calling the Queen and the King of Belgium to visit Congo is actually a way to find legitimacy that it lacks internally. And the Belgian, if they really had the interests of the Congolese at heart, we would not see this visit. They would have condemned what happened in the election. They would have condemned the way Congo is plundered, but it's not the case. So yes, they are not, I would say, the big players in the sense that they don't have any Glencore, and they are not Switzerland actually, who has to who is to blame also very much about the role they play in Congo, because they are the first country of having all the gold that comes from the Congo. But as we know, Switzerland is always quiet, so we forget about it. But nevertheless, we need to understand that the influence that they have is still there, and that it suits the Western powers that are willing to plunder.
Is that mindset changing? I ask the question because Congo, it's very simplistic to try to reduce it to extraction industries. Yours is now a country that churns out great authors, great artists that are known the world over. It's the #1 francophone country in the world now in terms of population. Can't Congo stand on its own 2 feet?
But I mean, look at the literature. When you talk about the Congo, and I specifically talk about people who call themselves Africanists, the one who are experts in the Congo, and look at the way they write about this country. There is no such things as art, literature, and so forth. What they would tell you about is the fact that Congolese population as a whole, I mean, it's just a mass that enjoy party and also lies a lot, and that are not fit for democracy. And this has been really the discourse of those scholars about the Congo. And the problem is that most of the time, when there is a program on the Congo, for instance, they'll be called to television, nobody to challenge the narrative about that country. And they will quote a specialist that will himself quote the same person who quoted him. And there is a kind of laziness in the thought when talking about this country. And this is really problematic. But again, this discourse, even the scholar discourse about the Congo, politics serves also the economy. And as long as we are not going to talk about that aspect of the question, it will be problematic to talk about the Congo. You will have narratives as ethnicity, or because this suits, I'm sorry, but the Western understanding of Africa as a whole. If there is no an ethnic war or something like that, it's not understandable. And those people don't think that Congolese people are reasonable people, that they can think their country as good as they can do. And then we have those things going on. And when we talk about those foreign intervention, what happens is that they will say Congolese people are always lamenting and they're always blaming somebody else of what is happening in the country. Of course, it's reducing Congo, talking just about the minerals. But if we want really to talk fully about what is happening in the Congo, we should also talk racism. We should also talk silencing of those voices coming from the Congo.
André Ngombe, again, you hailed not from a former Belgian, but a former French colony. Exactly. Is it the same problems?
We have the same problem, but let me make something straight. It's not the responsibility of the King of Belgium. Even it's not the responsibility of Belgium to care about the interests of DRC or DRC people. We must have it in mind. It's not the responsibility of French to have the interests of Congo in mind. But you have a political elite, corrupted political elite, who some people call black imperialism. They are the real one responsible for the lack of good governance. And then Belgium or any other country, Russia, China, just come as a side effect of those people unpatriotic behavior in their own country. This must be straight in everybody mind, because if you don't get this straight, you have your time just blaming other country, blaming other rulers for what's going on in your country. And this is really something we must have in mind. And then when it comes to the resource, and she talked about the racism of the storytelling, yes, but to own your own storytelling, you must have your media. And I know that the diaspora of Jersey is very dynamic on that. They have many web TV on that. And it's something starting, but we need to enforce that. And it's really true that if you want your story to be straight, you need to own your media and to tell it by yourself. And this is critical in the fight they have for the country.
Benedict Kumbi and Joko?
Yes, but I was saying, of course, we have to assign responsibilities where they need to be assigned. But I think it's also a problem when we don't acknowledge the fact that it's not just only about our people choosing the right people. It's about the fact that wars are waged against those people. And this is, I think, also critical to understand. What is happening now in the Congo, we just see with the aggression of Rwanda against Congo, what is happening there? The Congolese people, are using all those days the hashtag Rwanda's killing, because they're telling the world what is happening in their country. They take responsibility in telling the world who is aggressing them. Is the world listening to the Congolese people? Are the Congolese people in that case blaming other people, or they take responsibility in just voicing what is happening in their country? And when they also talk about the regime, when they talk about the regime in place, when they oppose Mr. Tshisekedi, they take responsibility for that. But then, when they make choices, those choices are just undermined. I think it's foreign policy who explain how the U.S. actually favored the last electoral fraud. It's all explained. It's not us Congolese, but the Congolese people, when they say this is not the person we chose, you have somebody like Jean-Luc Le Drian who is coming and saying this is an African compromise.
The French foreign minister. Let's just remind our viewers of what you're referring to with what's going on in the east of the country. As the king embarks on a tour of Congo, the latest resurgence of fighting in the east, a reminder that it's the country that's home to the world's largest UN peacekeeping force in North Kivu. It's the M23 militia. There are now, in the last couple of weeks, we've been fed, unfortunately, a steady diet of stories of massacres. One in Kibumba Monday that came of reports of 2 government soldiers killed. That's fresh North Kivu clashes that took place while the M23 is accused of perpetrating massacres. A different group in neighboring Ituri province blamed for the slaughter of at least 20 civilians on Sunday night. Kinshasa accuses Rwanda of supporting the M23 rebellion.
Le Conseil supérieur de la défense.
The Supreme Defense Council firmly denounces a campaign of manipulation by Rwanda, accusing our army of collaborating with negative forces to justify its support for the terrorist group M23.
Soutien au groupe terroriste du M23.
Justine Kazavuba, what more can the government in Kinshasa do at this point?
Well, let me just point out a very important question. You see, I will just pick up again one element that you just mentioned before about saying that Glencore and all these multinationals are not Belgian. Yes, I agree. But I think that we must keep in mind, because this explains everything that is happening in Congo. You see, we must focus on the macro geostrategic context of the Congo. You see, over the 100 past years, we faced two Western economic revolutions, industrial revolution in the late 19th century, which led to colonization. And today, 100 years later, we also face another revolution, technological revolution with coltan, with cobalt, which brought us the globalization. So for me, those two situations, globalization and colonization, brought exactly the same side effects. That's why today we are just still, deploring and complaining about the tragedy in Congo. So this is the key point that explains why all these, all these exploitation is still going on. So now, to come back to all the statement of the government, I think that here again, it's just a statement coming just too late, because it took them a year to understand that Rwanda is just provoking the situation. And so what about this Italian ambassador who just was killed last year? Wasn't it, again, the M23 who occurred in the area? So I think that it's just hypocrisy. Today, we are just at the crossroads of the truth. What Congo needs today, it's not a government that comes just too late and to say truth, but a government that can recognize, acknowledge that it has failed in all matters of the country. So we need a new team, we need a new challenge, we need also a new rule of law, because today it's just a jungle. And this king, I'm afraid, will just, go from town to town, but it's just a jungle. And I'm really afraid about that. This is really what I think it's very difficult for us to face.
Jean-Mobert Senga, you were mentioning earlier, describing how Belgium still has immense influence in DR Congo. Rwanda, also a former Belgian colony. When the king goes to the east of the country, is there anything he can say or do that can help in any way?
I'm not sure. And again, as one of the panelists mentioned, this is a king who has a ceremonial role. So that's why symbols matter the most when it comes to his visit. But he also, the royal family in Belgium has also the tradition of leading the Belgian foreign trade agency. So in that capacity, I'm quite sure that he will be looking at the economic aspects as well, he and the people accompanying him. So of course, Belgium still has some level of influence on Rwanda and Burundi as well, although it's different because we have two, the political situation in DRC is completely different, and also the economic and geopolitical interest, importance of DRC is completely different. But your question is linked to what Benedict was saying right now trying to answer Ms. Tangombe, who said that Congolese people who mentioned something about Congolese people complaining and blaming others. This is only partly true. I think what needs to be done is to acknowledge Congolese people's fight for freedom, for democracy, for their rights, and to support them in that fight to the extent possible. Or if you can't support them, then just let them fight and win, or or lose, but don't interfere. And what Belgium and other countries have done so far is to interfere in support of the corrupt elite. And all comes to that. If Congo has a democratic government that is legitimate, that is accountable to its people, then even the Rwandan, the conflict with Rwanda or the security situation in the east will be more properly and more effectively addressed. So that's the starting point. In 2019, as I said, Belgium was one of the first countries to recognize Tshisekedi as the president. I was in Kinshasa during the elections. I saw how Congolese people were eager to vote and to elect a leader. The world knows that someone else was elected, but Belgium and the US and other countries still accepted a fraudulent president. Who does not feel accountable to the Congolese people because he was not elected by them, and that's very important, and it has implications to the security situation, economic situation, and all other aspects of the country's life.
Unfortunately, we could talk for another hour. The time has flown by. Many more questions to ask. I want to thank you so much, Jean-Maubert Senga, for joining us from Nairobi, Justine Kazavuba in Brussels, Benedict Kumbi and Joko in Geneva, Andrea Ngombe. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.
Thank you.